The Galactic Emperor paces before a massive holoscreen, his gaze fixed on a transmission flickering with interference. A fleet is approaching the Imperial capital. His advisors watch anxiously as the signal clears, revealing a shocking signature: humanity. The Emperor scoffs, dismissing humanity as mere ants. But the advisors exchange worried glances, hinting that humanity has evolved far beyond the Empire's outdated information. The Emperor remains arrogant, underestimating this insignificant species. A transmission interrupted the calm of the Imperial Palace, filling the Emperor's private chamber with an eerie silence. The room, usually serene with soft glows of blue light, now flickered in red as the urgent signal cut through the air. The Emperor, draped in regal attire, barely glanced up from his throne. Humanity, they said, was on the move. His advisors exchanged cautious looks, but the Emperor chuckled softly, dismissing it with a wave. Humans, he scoffed. They're an upstart race. Nothing but a minor inconvenience. Yet one of the younger advisors, barely able to keep the tremor out of his voice, spoke up. Your Excellency, the reports indicate substantial activity. Their fleet appears sizable, and it's moving in our direction. Sizable, the Emperor echoed, letting the word roll off his tongue like an absurdity. This minor species dares approach the capital of the Galactic Empire? We've conquered thousands of systems. I doubt they'll be the exception. The advisors fell silent, but there was a tension, a lingering doubt that hung in the air. Ignoring their discomfort, the Emperor turned to the massive holoscreen. The live feed zoomed in on the approaching vessels, human ships in formation, speeding through space with an unsettling focus. They were sleek and dark, their hulls glinting against the stars, a vision both precise and foreboding. One advisor took a sharp breath. They're moving faster than anticipated, sire. It's as if they're already familiar with our defense lines. The Emperor, finally curious, leaned forward. Familiar with our defenses? He laughed, though it sounded hollow now. This is some display, yes, but an invasion. From them? He expected a chorus of agreement, but the room remained eerily quiet. One of the older advisors cleared his throat, hesitated, and then finally spoke. Perhaps we've underestimated them, Your Excellency. Reports suggest their technology has advanced considerably. Advancements? The Emperor's voice echoed sharply. Since when does a minor species possess advanced technology? His fingers tapped the throne armrest, betraying the first sign of irritation. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the holoscreen, capturing everyone's attention. The human fleet was closer now, and with every passing second, its formation sharpened. Their vessels seemed to adapt, move as one, weaving through space with a confidence that defied explanation. The advisors shifted nervously, the younger ones visibly unsettled by the precision on display. These aren't the crude ships we catalogued last, murmured a senior advisor. It's as if they've been preparing for this. Watching us. The Emperor's fingers stopped tapping. He narrowed his eyes. Preparing, for what, exactly? To attack, sire, came the blunt response. They're not just here to make noise. They're here to reach the capital. The Emperor sat back, the initial humor vanishing from his face. His gaze lingered on the screen, where humanity's fleet grew larger with each frame. It was an approach that defied logic, a strength that seemed impossible given their prior insignificance. For centuries, the Empire had barely spared Earth a thought, convinced of humanity's irrelevance in the grand scheme of things. But now, those overlooked humans were marching toward the Empire's very heart, and they did so without hesitation. A silence fell over the room as they watched the display. The Emperor's certainty seemed to waver, his mind working rapidly to process this new reality. One of the junior advisors whispered, barely audible. We've heard rumors that humanity has been advancing rapidly. Entire systems have reported sightings of strange, unknown crafts on their borders. The Emperor's gaze snapped to the advisor, his voice laced with skepticism. Rumors are for the fearful. We are not fearful, are we? No, Your Excellency, came the dutiful reply, though the advisor's face betrayed unease. But, It may be wise to consider the possibility. Humanity has not remained stagnant as we assumed. The Emperor turned back to the screen, observing the tightening formation of the fleet. He couldn't deny the coordinated precision, the clear purpose with which they approached. It was no aimless display. This was an invasion that seemed meticulously planned. And for the first time, a faint sliver of uncertainty touched his heart. As they continued to observe, another advisor spoke up, voice shaking. Their strategy is unusual, sire. They're avoiding our scanners, our perimeters, almost as if they know where we'll be. The Emperor's fists clenched. The truth was becoming harder to dismiss. He looked at his assembled council, realizing the gravity they were all feeling but no one dared to voice. Humanity had been a thorn in their side, a mere afterthought. And yet here they were, pressing forward as if vengeance itself powered their engines. Turning away from the screen, the Emperor's voice dropped to a near whisper, his tone betraying a depth of unease he had never shown before. If they've come this far, they must think they have a chance to succeed. But they underestimate us. Ready the fleet. Show them what it means to threaten the Empire. The advisors scurried, executing his orders, but an underlying tension remained. They glanced at each other, their minds turning over what they'd seen. Humanity wasn't just advancing, they were advancing with purpose, precision, and a determination that unsettled even the most hardened of Imperial commanders. The Emperor sat back, his eyes never leaving the approaching fleet on the screen. The confidence he projected was thinly veiled, and as his advisors hurried away, he was left alone with a new and disturbing thought: what if humanity wasn't simply daring? What if they were truly ready? The Imperial fleet surged forward, warships gleaming as they aligned in disciplined formations, a vast display of power and precision meant to intimidate. Crews aboard the massive vessels moved quickly, the usual routine now infused with a sense of urgency. This wasn't the standard exercise or minor skirmish they had grown accustomed to over centuries of dominance. But, as the fleet advanced, it became clear that humanity's response was far from what anyone had expected. The first wave of Imperial destroyers closed in on the human fleet, prepared for a swift victory. But instead of cowering or retreating, humanity's ships surged forward with unprecedented speed. In perfect synchrony, they cut through the dark expanse of space, adjusting their formation seamlessly to counter the Empire's offensive. The Imperial commanders, watching from their bridge, found themselves at a loss. No enemy had ever moved with such precision against their forces. Aboard the Imperial flagship, the Admiral's jaw clenched as he observed the unfolding scene. The human ships weren't just fast. They were agile in a way that defied the standard military tactics the Empire relied upon. The Empire's vessels, designed for brute force and sheer size, struggled to keep up with humanity's nimble maneuvers. Each time the Empire attempted to flank or encircle, the humans slipped through, responding with uncanny speed. Their ships appeared almost to anticipate the Empire's every move. Impossible, the Admiral muttered, his voice laced with disbelief. They're moving as if they know our tactics. The tension aboard the Imperial vessels mounted with each passing moment. Humanity's fleet didn't just dodge and weave, it retaliated with weapons that cut through Imperial shields like they were paper. The first Imperial ship to take a direct hit crumbled, its defenses overwhelmed in a single blast. The Imperial officers stared in horror as, one by one, their frontline ships buckled under the human assault. On the flagship's bridge, data flashed on every screen, officers scrambling to make sense of the relentless attack. Human weaponry was strange, an array of energy bursts and heat-seeking missiles that operated beyond anything the Empire had prepared for. It was as if humanity had tailored each system to counter every known Imperial defense. "Who are these humans?" one officer whispered, barely audible over the chaos. The Admiral didn't answer, his eyes fixated on the screens. The human strategy was meticulous, every strike measured, each movement purposeful. He recognized the hallmarks of disciplined planning and bitter resolve, a combination that was rare even among the Empire's finest. They weren't fighting for conquest, they were fighting to dismantle, piece by piece, the very system that had long ignored them. Panic rippled through the Imperial ranks as the humans advanced, their presence a growing storm of fury and vengeance. Every Imperial attempt to regroup was shattered almost as soon as it formed. Humanity's forces didn't need massive numbers. Their technology and tactics more than compensated. A sense of dread began to permeate the Empire's fleet, the once unshakable confidence eroding with each devastating impact. The Admiral received reports from every division, each worse than the last. Ships were disintegrating under the humans' assault, their vaunted shields and hulls failing against weapons they had no defense for. Commands were barked to recalibrate, to counter, to retreat even, but humanity pressed on with ruthless efficiency, relentless and unyielding. What is their objective? Another officer managed, his voice strained with confusion and fear. The Admiral knew. This wasn't a simple invasion or raid. Humanity had no intention of merely breaching Imperial lines. They were dismantling the Empire's most prized fleet with almost surgical precision. There was a message in their approach, a warning laced into every move they made: "We know you, and we know how to break you." An unsettling rumor began to circulate among the Imperial crews. Whispers spoke of an unknown force, powering humanity's ships, an energy source that seemed almost mythical in its strength. The Empire had encountered many civilizations and many weapons, but nothing like this. Human ships glowed with a strange, eerie light, their engines flaring with a power that no one in the Empire understood. As the humans advanced, the Empire's seasoned commanders found themselves paralyzed by indecision. They'd expected fear, desperation, but all they saw was a calculated resolve in their enemy. Human ships moved like predators, stalking with precision, always one step ahead, evading every trap and countermeasure. It was like watching a hunter take down prey, piece by piece, with unerring accuracy. In a moment of desperate clarity, the Admiral ordered the fleet to fall back, regroup, try to hold a defensive position. But humanity didn't give them the chance. Each time they attempted to retreat, the human ships pushed forward, relentless. It was clear now that humanity wasn't here to negotiate or intimidate. They were here to conquer, to prove a point that no one in the Empire could ignore. The Admiral watched helplessly as the flagship's defensive screens flickered under the human barrage, the shield readings dropping to alarming levels. They won't stop," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. The Empire's forces were crumbling, and for the first time, the Admiral understood the depth of the Empire's mistake. They had dismissed humanity, overlooked them as insignificant, and now they were paying the price. These weren't the helpless creatures they had once regarded as inferior. Humanity had evolved, hardened into a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The final realization settled over the crew like a shadow: humanity had come not just to fight, but to destroy. And the Empire, with all its might, could do nothing to stop them. The Imperial leaders gathered in a war room, the tension palpable as reports flooded in from the front lines. Humanity's assault was more than relentless. It was surgical, dismantling their forces with purpose and precision. For the first time, panic took root in the hearts of those who had ruled with absolute authority. Faced with annihilation, the Empire's leaders had no choice but to consider the unthinkable. A trembling diplomat, eyes wide with fear, finally spoke up. We must initiate contact. Open negotiations before we lose everything." The Emperor's face darkened, his pride warring with a growing sense of desperation. But reality was undeniable. With a clenched jaw, he nodded, signaling for an open channel. Moments later, a transmission connected, and humanity's leader appeared on screen, expression cold and unyielding. There was no hint of fear, no trace of reverence for the Empire that had long ruled unchallenged. The Emperor straightened, forcing authority into his tone. "You have our attention, human! Cease your assault, and we can discuss terms." The human leader regarded him in silence for a moment, then spoke with a calm intensity that cut through the Emperor's bravado. "Terms? You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. This is justice." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the Imperial Council. Justice? From humans? The concept seemed absurd, almost laughable. But the human's gaze didn't waver, and something in his tone silenced any protest. He continued, his voice cold and controlled. For centuries, your empire has taken what it wanted. You plundered planets, exploited civilizations, and used entire species as pawns in your endless quest for power. The human leader's eyes narrowed. And you thought we wouldn't notice? That we wouldn't remember? The Emperor's face paled, a flicker of doubt creeping into his expression. He had long dismissed humanity as irrelevant, a minor annoyance at best. But the weight of the accusation lingered in the air, undeniable in its raw intensity. Desperately, he tried to salvage his authority. We never targeted your kind specifically. Whatever offenses you claim, they were necessary. It was the cost of progress. The human leader's face twisted with contempt. Progress? You call it progress to abduct, to torture, to enslave entire populations for your gain? His voice rose, a barely controlled fury beneath the surface. You viewed us as nothing more than resources, pawns to be used and discarded. You thought your actions would go unanswered. One of the Emperor's advisors, visibly shaken, dared to speak up. Perhaps we can reach an understanding. Humanity's grievances, whatever they may be, can be addressed. Reparations can be made. We are open to negotiations. A bitter laugh escaped the human leader, his expression darkening. You think this is about reparations? About a price to be paid so you can continue as you always have? No. This is about accountability. Something you've never faced. The Empire's leaders shifted uncomfortably, the weight of the humans' words settling over them like a storm. The Empire, for all its might, had never encountered an enemy unwilling to bargain, to be swayed by offers of wealth or power. But humanity's eyes held none of the greed or desperation they were accustomed to seeing. There was only resolve, forged in years of quiet rage and defiance. The Emperor, now visibly unsettled, tried once more. This course of action benefits no one. Think of what could be gained by an alliance. Together, we could rule the galaxy as partners. The human's gaze turned icy, his voice unwavering. We're not here to rule with you. We're here to make you understand what it means to face consequences. Silence fell over the room, heavy and suffocating. The Empire's leaders looked at each other, their expressions betraying the fear that had taken hold. For the first time, they were confronted not with a species seeking survival or advantage, but one seeking retribution. The human leader's words hung in the air, a promise of judgment that no amount of bargaining could erase. You can't be serious, one advisor whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. This is madness. Destroying the Empire would bring chaos to the galaxy. The human leader's expression didn't soften. Chaos is what you brought. You sowed it across countless worlds, thinking yourselves untouchable. But every empire has its reckoning. Today, yours has arrived. The Emperor, now stripped of his once imposing confidence, looked at the human leader with something akin to fear. And what, exactly, do you seek? What will it take for this madness to end? The human's voice lowered, chilling in its finality. There's nothing you can give that will change your fate. Your empire will fall, just as you watched countless others fall. Today, the oppressed rise, and the oppressors fall. A final silence descended, and for the first time, the Emperor realized he was powerless. Humanity had come, not with demands or ultimatums, but with a resolve he couldn't break. In that moment, the full weight of their intentions settled over him, and he understood the true nature of his fate. Without another word, the transmission cut, leaving the Empire's leaders staring into the void, the truth clear as the darkness that awaited them. Humanity had risen from the shadows, not as allies or supplicants, but as judges. The Empire, once invincible, now faced its end at the hands of those it had dismissed for so long. And nothing they could offer would stop it. The transmission ended, leaving the Imperial leaders in stunned silence, each face drained of color. The weight of the human leader's final words lingered heavily, a stark reminder that no negotiation, no plea, would halt the inevitable. Across the fleet, orders were issued in panicked tones as they prepared for the final stand. Every defensive measure, every reserve force was mobilized, but there was an air of resignation in their movements. They were preparing not out of hope, but out of duty, knowing full well what awaited them. On the edge of Imperial space, humanity's fleet advanced without hesitation. The human ships moved with eerie precision, each one holding its position, closing in like the jaws of an inescapable trap. Imperial warships, once symbols of strength and intimidation, seemed small in comparison, overwhelmed by the sheer force and purpose of humanity's armada. The Empire's admirals and captains barked orders, desperate to maintain formations, but the cracks were already showing. Fear had taken root, and it spread through the ranks like wildfire. As the fleets collided, humanity's assault was brutal, unrelenting. Blasts from their weapons ripped through the Empire's defensive shields, dismantling their once impenetrable barriers with surgical efficiency. The Empire's weapons, so effective against lesser species, seemed almost obsolete against humanity's advanced systems. Each Imperial ship that fell was a piece of the Empire's legacy slipping away, each blast a testament to the reckoning they had never imagined possible. The Emperor watched the battle unfold, his hands clenched into fists, as his pride gave way to helplessness. The Imperial capital, once thought invulnerable, was now exposed, and the sight of his fleet disintegrating before his eyes brought a chilling clarity. Humanity had no desire for conquest or submission. They had come to make a statement, to ensure the Empire would never threaten another world again. And as the human ships advanced, the Emperor understood with grim certainty that their message would be delivered with fire. The Empire's final defenses crumbled, the human fleet reaching the capital itself. The towering structures of the Imperial city, once symbols of unassailable power, now seemed fragile, dwarfed by the looming shadows of humanity's warships. Every citizen, every official, watched in horror as the skies filled with unfamiliar vessels, dark and foreboding. The Empire's proud banners fluttered, meaningless in the face of an enemy they could neither intimidate nor negotiate with. Panic rippled through the streets as humanity's presence became undeniable, a harbinger of the end. The first barrage struck, tearing into the city's core. Buildings that had stood for millennia crumbled in an instant, reduced to rubble under humanity's relentless assault. Explosions echoed across the capital, the ground trembling beneath the weight of retribution. The Emperor, staring out over the city from his palace, was forced to confront the reality of his empire's fall. Humanity had come not to conquer but to dismantle, to erase the very foundation of the power he had once believed untouchable. Across the galaxy, messages poured in from vassal worlds and allied species, each one watching in stunned disbelief as the Galactic Empire, the ultimate force in the galaxy, was brought to its knees. For generations, these worlds had bowed to the Empire, their fates bound by fear and coercion. But now, they witnessed humanity's wrath, a force so unwavering that even the mighty Empire stood no chance. Humanity's message was clear: the age of oppression was over, and those who wielded power without accountability would face the consequences. As the palace itself began to shake from the bombardment, the Emperor sat alone, surrounded by the opulence that now felt meaningless. All the conquests, all the victories, had led to this moment, a moment where his legacy would be remembered not for its power, but for its downfall. In his final moments, he understood the depth of humanity's resolve, the lengths to which they would go to right the wrongs they had suffered. This wasn't a victory for the Empire, it was a warning to any who would think themselves above reproach. Humanity's fleet pulled back after the city lay in ruins, leaving behind a smoldering landscape and a broken empire. No words, no triumphant proclamations followed, only the stark silence of retribution completed. They hadn't come to rule, they had come to deliver a reckoning. The Empire was left a hollow shell, stripped of its power, its cities shattered, its influence scattered to the stars. Other species, once oppressed and fearful, found new hope in the destruction of the Empire's grip. In the aftermath, whispers spread across the galaxy of humanity's rise. The stories painted them not as conquerors, but as protectors, an unexpected force of justice that had risen from the shadows to hold the powerful accountable. Worlds that had long suffered in silence now looked to the stars with a newfound sense of freedom, the heavy yoke of the Empire lifted. Humanity's actions had left an indelible mark, a warning carved into the very fabric of the galaxy. And as humanity's fleet disappeared into the depths of space, Leaving the ruins of the Empire behind, one truth remained undeniable: a new era had begun. An era in which those who sought unchecked power would face the consequences.